Were you surprised at the narrative arc of the NFT? And you have to admit, it was probably the greatest piece of PR
Yes.
that you guys or anybody could have received because it got so many eyeballs on the space. Again, such a high search term on Google. People know what it is. I gave my 17-year-old daughter an NFT. She thought I was the coolest dad for a couple days, and but it was a pretty amazing way to draw focus and attention. Some call it the gateway drug of crypto right now. What do you make of what happened in the last 18 months? Did you see any of that coming?
So obviously, long term, we fundamentally believed in NFTs. Otherwise, we wouldn't have built an NFT business and dropped out of university, which I did to start it way back in 2017. But I certainly did not expect literally it went from something that no one would ever know about, if you ever saw, to being a household concept, to being something you hear about every few days. And that is pretty rare in the space of a year. And for the first 3 years of the company, when we were building Immutable X and we were building out these examples of how to use this platform through things like Gods Unchained, if you go to godsunchained.com, which is one of the blockchain's most popular games, it's a trading card game that we make, we actually don't mention the word NFT anywhere. And we haven't since the start because we thought it's crazy. It's like mentioning a deep technical concept to an end user. It's like trying to explain HTTPS and end-to-end encryption to a user who's coming to your encrypted website. It's just crazy. Just show them the benefits. Say your password is secured, say your communications are secured, show them the green lock. And so we really just thought, and I still think there's a lot of truth to this, the benefits of NFTs should speak for themselves. You shouldn't have to say to a user, hey, you have an NFT. You should say, hey, you have guarantees over how many of this item can ever exist. You can sell the item. The item is worth real value. No one can take it away from you. Your publisher can't pull the rug from underneath you and economically change the rules of the games. And I still think there's a lot of truth to that. Not necessarily in always hiding the word NFT, but we have to create use cases and applications which stand alone, which create an incredibly good experience without having to sell it as NFTs, because only then are we actually realizing the value prop of this technology. But harking back to your question, it's insane. It's pretty wild to be on the inside track and seeing something which literally no one knew about become a household name. But it's also pretty cool to see one of the fastest emerging markets in history kind of crystallize so quickly. And what we're seeing is this catch up. Traditionally we saw people experiment and create innovative technology, and slowly they build more traction. And finally, early VCs come in, and crypto has really turned that on its head, which is capital is there from the start. People are there to fund experiments, and I think that's actually awesome. Sometimes it means you over allocate capital, but really what it means is you just get to the end point, which is transformation of society for the better of people much, much faster. Because I promise you, what we're currently investing in Web3 and crypto will look like nothing compared to it just being the state of the world. Just like the valuations or investments we made in the 90s in the internet are nothing compared to business as usual today for information technology companies.
Yeah, and you're right. It's happening much, much, much faster when you can tokenize it and get that capital right away. And it's a little bit of your business model, which I'd love to go in later, as far as how you use your tokens in a way that's very Web 3.0, not 2.0. And like you said, almost cut out that loop that's been in the tech business for 60, 70 years since semiconductors started, where you got to go get the VC, talk them into it, they invest, they got the Web 2.0 mentality where we want to get the returns. So then it's not open source. You don't really give it to the user, and you end up building something that doesn't always work. Whereas this Web3 mentality, you have to think of it really differently. And I'd love to get those thoughts from you as a president as we come in through. You've talked about NFTs, and I think this is a quote from you where you said, look at the total addressable market of NFTs. It's insane. Nothing has ever emerged so fast, from 100 million in gross marketplace volume in 2020 to over 23 billion in 2021. Can you think of anything in history that's accelerated at that pace?
No, even the information age, which has been the defining catalyst in human history, did not progress that fast. So no, I think it is absolutely insane.
And you've gone on to go further, and you said, to me, the gaming NFT use case is like 0.01% of what's going to be in even 12 to 18 months from now. That means, what, 10,000 times bigger 12 to 18 months. Am I getting you right on that quote?
I don't know if the time frame will be 12 to 18 months, but Absolutely, over the next decade. And gaming will be a very small fraction of what NFTs will ultimately trade in terms of value. Like, we're talking about every form of unique financial value. We're talking about intellectual property. We're talking about centralized registry assets like timeshares. We're talking about physical assets like wine, like sneakers, with projects like StockX. And so we're really talking about stuff, both digital and physical. It is the superset of every form of unique value that humans interact with and use to fulfill their lives. And we saw the wave of DeFi. And ultimately what DeFi is financial services that are decentralized. And financial services exist to service people's interests. And those interests are fundamentally stuff. Like we have the ability to create options around things. One of my favorite stories is, I think it was Bridgewater, don't quote me on that, who created the options contract that allowed McDonald's to create chicken McNuggets, because otherwise they didn't have the stability on one of the core ingredients in order to create stable cost of goods. And so ultimately, DeFi is secondary to actually being able to tokenize stuff, to create real value for people who want to use these items.